The Aurelian Academy of Interspecies Studies had never hosted a human student before Ellie Radford walked through its arched doorway on a rain-slicked Tuesday morning, backpack slung over one shoulder, sneakers squeaking against marble floors built for beings with 4 legs and better balance. She was 17, freckled, unremarkable, by every account the Aurelian faculty had reviewed. Average grades. No combat training. No family lineage of note. Earth's diplomatic office had chosen her for the exchange program precisely because she was ordinary. A goodwill gesture. A symbol that humanity trusted the galaxy enough to send an average kid into a room full of extraordinary ones. The other students didn't know what to make of her. There was Tobin Rezaconquo. No, wait. Humans only had one exchange student that year, and everyone else in Ellie's cohort was alien. The Vryn twins, silver-skinned and silent, communicated in subharmonic hums. Prax Delane, a broad-shouldered Kalisi boy with mandibles he was self-conscious about, sat 2 rows back and never spoke to her. And then there was Ithran Koss, son of a Kalisi trade magnate, who made it his personal mission to remind Ellie, daily, that humans were the galaxy's newest and least impressive species. Your species discovered fire 6,000 years after everyone else already had fusion reactors, he said once, loud enough for the whole classroom to hear. It's almost charming. Ellie hadn't responded. She just kept taking notes. That was the thing about her. She absorbed insults the way a sponge absorbed water, without visible reaction, and the other students had started to assume she simply didn't feel them. They were wrong. She felt everyone. She just knew, with a certainty that had nothing to do with pride, that reacting was exactly what Ithran wanted. The fight happened on a Thursday, during Applied Xenophysics, 3rd period. It started small. Prax Delane had struggled all semester. Kalisi biology wasn't built for the class's gravity settings, and his coordination suffered for it. When his experiment tray slipped from his claws and shattered across the floor, Ithran laughed first, loud and cutting, and 2 other students joined in. Careful, Ithran said, wouldn't want the clumsy one to embarrass the whole cohort. Prax's mandibles clicked, a sound Ellie had learned, over weeks of quiet observation, meant humiliation. He said nothing. He just knelt to gather the broken glass, his hands shaking. Ithran wasn't finished. He crossed the room, plucked a shard from the floor before Prax could reach it, and held it just out of his grasp, taunting. It was a small cruelty. The kind adults dismiss as kids being kids. But Prax, cornered and stripped of patience, lunged. What followed wasn't a fight so much as an eruption. Prax's shoulder caught Ithran across the chest, sending him crashing into a lab bench. Beakers shattered. 2 Vryn students scrambled back, humming in alarm. The teacher, a tall Corvassi instructor named Director Yesh, was 3 doors down in the faculty office and would take a full 20 seconds to arrive. 20 seconds in which Ithran, furious and humiliated, grabbed a fallen support rod from the broken bench and swung it at Prax's head. That was when Ellie moved. She didn't think so. She didn't calculate the mass of the rod or the velocity of the swing, or whether stepping into the path of an enraged Kalisi noble's son was, strategically, an insane idea. She'd spent 4 years as a lifeguard at a public pool back in Ohio, and some instincts don't care what planet you're on. She caught the rod mid-swing with both hands. The impact rattled up her arms, hard enough to bruise, but she held on, twisting her body between Ithran and Prax, planting her feet the way her swim coach had drilled into her for pulling drowning kids out of the deep end. Low center of gravity. Don't fight the current. Redirect it. That's enough, she said. Not shouted. Just said, flat and clear, the way you tell a kid to put down a knife. Ithran stared at her, stunned that a human, the smallest, softest creature in the room, had stopped his swing cold. For a second nobody breathed. Then Director Yesh burst through the door, robes flaring, and the room dissolved into shouting and explanations and the general chaos of adults arriving too late to a crisis already resolved. What the footage from the classroom's observation drones captured, and what spread through the Academy's internal network by nightfall, wasn't the fight itself. It was the 6 seconds before it. Ellie stepping in front of a blow meant for someone else, absorbing the risk herself, without hesitation and without asking permission from anyone in the room. Prax found her at lunch the next day, sitting alone as usual at the end of a long table, and set his tray down across from her without a word. It was the first time he'd sat near her all semester. "You didn't have to do that," he said finally, mandibles clicking low and even. The sound, Ellie now knew, for something closer to gratitude than shame. "I know," she said. "Nobody was going to do it fast enough. So I did it." Prax studied her for a long moment. "Humans do this? Step into danger for strangers. We do it for the family. Friends. Sometimes strangers." She shrugged, picking at her food. "Mostly we just don't like watching someone get hurt when we can stop it. Doesn't matter if we've spoken to them before." He didn't have a response to that. Neither, it turned out, did Ithrin, who was called before the Academy's disciplinary board and quietly transferred to a different cohort by the end of the week. Not because Ellie had reported him, she hadn't said a word to the administration, but because Director Yesh had reviewed the drone footage and seen exactly what kind of student he was training under his roof. Word of the incident reached further than the Academy's walls. It reached the trade councils, who whispered about the soft species that had produced a girl willing to catch a metal rod with her bare hands for a boy she barely knew. It reached Earth's diplomatic office, who quietly noted that their unremarkable exchange student had done more for humanity's reputation in 6 seconds than a decade of trade negotiations. Ellie herself thought little of it. She went back to her dorm that night, iced the bruises blooming purple across her palms, and video called her mom in Columbus, who fussed over the injury and asked, half joking, whether Ellie was sure she wanted to stay on that planet full of aliens who threw metal rods at each other. "They're not all like that," Ellie said. "Most of them just needed to see someone act like it mattered." By the following semester, Prax sat beside her every day without being asked. The Vrin twins had started humming a low, rhythmic pattern whenever she entered a room, a pattern Ellie later learned was reserved, in Vrin custom, for those they considered kin. The Academy never advertised what happened in Applied Xenophysics that Thursday. It didn't need to. Across a dozen worlds, in classrooms full of students who'd grown up believing humans were the galaxy's newest, weakest species, one story kept circulating, told and retold until the details blurred, but the meaning never did. She was just a human exchange student. Until it mattered. And then she was the only one in the room who moved.